Weekly for the week of May the 4th. The season is over, and it's time to do a retrospective and see what we thought of it. Or a post-mortem is maybe a better word. As we look back at what went wrong with the Raptors and what can be done to improve this team and get it to the levels of, I don't know, Washington? I don't know. Yeah, and helping me decipher that is the man who must be pretty happy these days, Tim W. So Tim, like before we dive any deeper, so when as that sweep was happening, the Raptors were down like 30 points in the third quarter. Was there like a evil grin on your face, like joy inside as you watched the Raptors just get crushed by the Wizards? Were you deep down like, yeah, I told you guys so?
Okay, no, I am not happy that the Raptors did so poorly. What I am happy about is that there is now hopefully no doubt that something needs to be done. So, yeah, I mean, you mentioned a couple of times that I must be happy. And no, I'm not happy. I don't want to see the team get completely demolished, but there is the bright side, which I wrote about.
So yeah, I read your article actually. I never read your articles. When it's in draft, I just go in there to see like, is he gonna like say something really crazy that's gonna like I'll have to moderate like 10,000 comments. Like, is this,
well, that's the goal.
I just do a sanity check of like what level your venomousness is at.
Well, I was a little disappointed. Normally, I don't look at the comments because, quite frankly, they're insane. But I did glance down after the last one, and I was a little disappointed that I wasn't getting raked over the coals, and that most people agreed with me. I mean, what's the point?
Yeah, I was just joking. I do read your pieces, more often than not. But yeah, you a lot of nodding heads as I'm reading your comments and look in the comment section there. So let's go back. So are you implying that the results of this playoff series have completely shifted Ujiri's point of view of how this team is structured? Or one could make the argument that this kind of was his plan. I think a lot of the press or one viewpoint at the start of the season was, let's just see how far this team can take you and go from there. And I think one might argue that's what he's kind of done. He's kind of tested the waters with his team, seen what their limits are, and gone from there. I don't know if he had any grand delusions that this team was going to win him a title. I think when he spoke to Zach Lowe, the article you referenced in your recent post, he mentioned to Zach Lowe that like the winning in the weak East is maybe fool's gold. Those are the terms he used. So I don't know if Ujiri expected more from this team. I think maybe when you say that, now that the blinders are off, now you can see what this team is really like. I think he never had any delusions about this team.
Well, when I was referring to that, I wasn't really talking to Ujiri, or about Ujiri. I think he was disappointed with the outcome of the playoffs. I mean, I think he would have liked to have seen them go to the second round. I think that was the hope. But the problem is, if the fan base has unreasonable expectations, then trying to do something is more difficult. And that's what happened after the Gay trade. The team started to do well, and there was less ammunition, I guess, to do something. And I think that was a mistake. Well, I don't think he thought that was a championship team. I think saying, let's see how far this team goes isn't really the smartest thing, because you can see what pieces you have. And I mean, obviously you don't know exactly what you have, but you can see the problems with it, and you could see it back, a year and a half ago.
All right, so let's go over your latest piece, and you're suggesting in that one that DeMar DeRozan is kind of your focal point amongst other things there, and you're suggesting that his game is a bit flawed, that he's not a modern shooting guard, and that I think you're implying there that you can't win with him as your best player. And I was reading that. I mean, I had a couple of parallel thoughts in my head. I was like, is DeMar DeRozan this decade's Chris Bosh?
It's funny because I'm writing a new article, and I make that comparison. I mean, very quickly, it's not a big thing, but I think in a lot of ways he is. I think he's more suited to third or fourth best player on a team.
Oof.
And right now he's the second or first, and you're not going to go far. I mean, really, he's a very good scorer in the regular season, but he doesn't have the type of game that translates to a playoff series, a good playoff series, a good playoff team, because he doesn't have the type of game that fits the system. He can't shoot the three consistently. He doesn't really move that well without the ball. His biggest strengths are when he's holding the ball, either in the post or on the wing, and trying to drive, basically. I mean, he's improved. I don't think he's a bad player. I think that it's really difficult to try and build a team with him as one of the main components because of the flaws in his game. So.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I hear you on that. He's not he's got flaws. Every summer he's making, I'd say, marginal improvements. I don't think he's taken a huge step any summer. I think he comes back with a little bit of better shooting, maybe a little better dribbling. But he doesn't go from he doesn't transcend levels. He doesn't go like one level up in his game. I think he's always been I'd say second to third tier player in this league, and that's kind of where he is right now. But at the same time, you got to say, he's not a system guy. I mean, the one thing in defense of DeMar DeRozan's is that his entire career, or most of his career, he's played under Jay Triano and Dwayne Casey. I mean, two coaches that are not. I don't know if they stand to teach you much. So what he knows is what he knows, and it's based on Jay Triano and Dwayne Casey and 1 year of college basketball. So when people call for Dwayne Casey's head after this series or after this season, one of the reasons they're doing that is not so much because he showed an utter failure to coach a team in any sort of way, but also because he might be hampering some of the development of young players. And I agree with that part more than anything, is that when you look at DeMar DeRozan, when you look at Valanciunas or Terrence Ross, I don't know if Dwayne Casey's I don't know if he's helped them. I don't know if he's a player development type coach, and I think that's kind of being reflected in our young talent. So I've been more or less a Casey supporter, but I do understand a lot of the criticisms that are coming at him, and my biggest one really is lack of adaptability, as has been pointed out by numerous U.S. media since the Raptors got eliminated, and also just how bad he is at player development. And I think DeMar DeRozan may be a bit of a victim of that. What do you think of that?
I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah, I mean, the adaptability and the X's and O's, I mean, those can be worked on. And Greg Popovich was not the best coach when he took over the Spurs, and he had his issues. And, he obviously worked on them. I think that too often we forget that it's not just players that can grow, but coaches. And I think some coaches have room to get much better, and others don't. I don't know whether that's the case with Casey. But I think, like you, his biggest problem is that it's not just DeRozan, it's Valanciunas and Ross, as you mentioned, and everyone else on the roster who really have not progressed the way they were supposed to. And I think I remember talking about this in one post I did a couple of years ago. I think after Valanciunas' first year, that it didn't seem like Casey was able to develop him that much. He didn't improve as much over the first year as I expected.
No, it's certainly when you look at a coach, you do something, you see the evidence of whether something worked or not worked, and then you adapt based on it, or you change based on more information as it comes out. And certainly Casey's not a coach that that appears to do that. He seems to have one particular plan, and that plan is going to be the plan regardless of what happens between games or between quarters. He's just that type of guy. And I think his coaching overall has been just terrible in the postseason and in the second half of the season. And I think I've harped about that enough, but specifically to player development, which is what the conversation is. Yeah.
The one thing that we have to remember, though, is that a lot of player development is done by assistant coaches as well. Mm-hmm. So they have to take some blame for it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the problem when you're judging coaches, is you don't know what happens behind the scenes. And that's why I always hate trying to judge coaches too much, because most of what they do is not seen. Yeah. I mean, what we see in the game is only a small part of what's going on.
If you look at players, as an investment, and over time that investment builds value, I just don't see that if that value is being built fast enough in guys like Valanciunas and Ross. I think Valanciunas has market value. I think he'll get a decent deal, just because I think, just like fans are frustrated based on about his usage, I think other people outside the organization in the NBA see the same patterns. But Ross is the guy that I'm looking at and I'm like, oh my God, this guy, he may just be in the D League next year. Like, if he didn't have a contract, he just might be in the D League. And the only saving grace of Ross is that he can shoot the three when he's somewhat open, and maybe that's enough to keep you in the league. But I don't know. I just see Ross and Valanciunas as risks when you have Casey in charge.
Yeah, talking about Ross, I mean, there are actually quite a few players that are similar to him that, you know, they were drafted, they were lottery picks, and as soon as, you know, their first contract expired, they were gone, or they just bounced around. I think that's the same. That might be the same with Ross. I mean, I think he's got some potential to be a decent player. The 51-point game was
yeah, that was something.
I don't think was indicative of anything. And I mean, everyone forgets the who was it? Was it AC Earl who scored?
I don't know, Tim. I don't know. You seem to remember
like 40 points.
You seem to remember a post you wrote 2.5 years ago, which is pretty impressive. I don't know if my memory recalls the past 2 days.
I have very selective memory. So.
Only the times you were right.
Yes. I don't remember any of the times I was wrong, by the way.
All right. Okay. Let's move on. Terrence Ross, okay. The joke that I made on Twitter, and it was like a tongue-in-cheek type thing. I was like, this guy reminds me of Chris Jeffries, and I've said this many times on the site, that this guy reminds you of. And if listeners, if you're an older Raptor fan, you might know who Chris Jeffries was back in, I think, the 2000s. He was drafted by somebody, and he stuck around for a couple of years and left off. And Ryan Wolstad from the Sound responded that Terrence Ross is way more talented than Chris Jeffries. And no arguments there. He is more talented. Yeah. He can shoot the three, but that doesn't mean they're going to stick around in the league. So
no.
Let's move on to the next topic. We've covered DeRozan. So is Kyle Lowry trending towards being Raymond Felton?
Oh, that's actually a pretty good comparison. They both have very similar body types. So.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think he's going that bad. I think he's got more desire than Raymond Felton.
For what, food?
He's got more of a chip on his shoulder, let's just say, which can have a positive effect and, as I mentioned, negative effect too. I mean, if you have Kyle Lowry as your point guard, you're saying a couple of things. He needs the ball. He needs to be a main component of your offense.
But doesn't a point guard need to be the main? Like, I mean, if you look, give me one team where the point guard is not the main component of your offense.
Well, the Miami team with.
Oh, come on! They had LeBron. That's like saying with Michael Jordan's Bulls need a point guard. But most, like, if you look at the Spurs, look at the Clippers, look at the Hawks, they all have great point guards. Washington.
Nowadays they do.
Yeah.
But that's only because there's so many good point guards in the league. I don't
know if that's a fair criticism of Kyle Lowry, is that he needs the ball to be successful. He's a damn point guard, man. The possession starts with him with the ball. I mean, there are very few teams that can operate without the point guard being a major part of it.
Well, yeah, but you need a shooting guard or a small forward who the offense runs through. I mean, like Houston.
Okay. Go on.
Well, no, I'm saying if you have a Kobe or a Harden or somebody like that, or a LeBron, I think that you can get away with a point guard who plays off the ball.
Okay, I agree with that. I'm just saying there aren't many teams like that. So let's go back to Kyle Lowry. Let's go back to Kyle Lowry. What's the issue you got with him?
He's inconsistent. He's too emotional. There was the I don't know if you heard the Ion Basketball podcast, the CBS Sports one.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about the Raptors, and it was a whole podcast dedicated to the Raptors. And Matt Moore was talking about how he calls bad decisions in crunch time Lowry's, because he's seen Lowry he'll pull up for a three, when the Raptors are behind by one or whatever, and sometimes he will hit it and he'll look like a hero. But more often than not, he'll make some stupid decision that is ego driven or is a product of the playing with a chip on his shoulder, and it hurts the team. He's not a smart player.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw that in Washington when he's going for steals and stuff like that. And I think that if your point guard is not a smart player and he doesn't make good decisions, especially in crunch time, you're screwed basically. So
yeah, I hear you. I'm with you. I'm with you on that one. Sure, he's made some. But that's also been the way he's been successful, and that's also been the way he's failed the team. And my criticism of that is that there is no structure to our offense. Our offense is predicated on guys like Lou Williams. I don't know if he's going to be back, and Kyle Lowry just going rogue and doing what they want on the court when they want it, without any great or very loose direction from the head coach. And the fear when that was working in the regular season, the caution that everybody threw to the wind was like, well, that might not work in the playoffs because the teams are just that much more zoned in that they can stop that kind of play. And that's what happens. So I'm with you. Kyle Lowry is a temperamental player who relies on being in control of the possession and being ball dominant. I get you. How much of that, at 29 years of age, Tim, how much of that can change in his game? Like, is this the player he's going to be for the rest of his contract? Or is there any room for change? Can you translate him or convert him to be a more system guy than, or is this what Kyle Lowry is going to be for the next 3 years?
I think that there's a chance that he can adapt, but I would rather the Raptors not try, because he's 29 years old. He's not a really athletic point guard. He's undersized. He's not that quick. And too many guys like him drop off a cliff at some point around 30, because once the physical goes, they're gone. They're done. He's making $12 million, which at the time everyone was talking about what a great bargain that is. It doesn't look like nearly the bargain anymore. In my upcoming post, I talk about what we should do with each player, and I'll give away some of it now. I say that
you're like a celebrity promoting a movie with your upcoming post.
And I am in the Avengers one, by the way.
You are?
I won't say who I am. No, I'm not.
Okay, maybe an extra or something. I know they shoot a lot of movies in Vancouver.
I'm Thor, actually, but let's get beyond that. I think it would be better to try and trade him and get something for him now than try and adapt him at 29 on a team that is, it can go either way. They could win 40 games next year. They could implode. Who knows? And I think if Lowry's still on the team, he could cause problems. And I would like to see what you could get for him now. I'm not saying trade him at any cost, but if they can get a good deal for him, do it.
Yeah. Well, this would definitely be a bit of a sell low, as it would be with Terrence Ross. But okay, that's your point of view. That's fine. I think I just don't know if you're gonna get anything great in return for Kyle Lowry at this point. Like I don't know if you'll get a better player for Kyle Lowry, or
you probably won't get a better player.
Yeah, so I don't know what the
player, and I think that's the I think that needs to be the goal. You need to find a trading partner. And I think there are plenty of teams out there that might. Yeah, the Knicks, ones I mentioned, Sacramento, Indiana, Lakers, Dallas, Houston. All those teams definitely could use an upgrade at point guard, and I can see them looking for somebody like Lowry.
Yeah, but at the same time, Tim, like the Raptors have like a point guard is a pretty interesting position because we don't have a third point guard. We have Vasquez out there who is just terrible defensively, and we don't have a third point guard. Like most teams have a third string guy, and they can kind of promote to a backup if need be. But Raptors don't. They're one of the unique teams in the league. So I don't know what you're going to do at point guard if you trade Lowry, because it's one of the positions that is quite thin.
Well, yeah. On the Raptors, but not in the league. I think there's some young point guards. I would like to see the Raptors try and get Tyler Ennis again. I mean, he's not playing in Milwaukee just as he didn't play in Phoenix because there were more accomplished players ahead of him.
Yeah,
I think
there might be a reason for that, though.
I don't. Well, he's a rookie. I think Steve Nash didn't play in his first year in Phoenix either. I mean, I'm not saying that Ennis is anything close to Nash, but I think Ennis has talent. He needs to play. I mean, there's loads of examples of players who were stuck behind more accomplished players, more experienced players, and didn't play, were traded, and then suddenly blew up. I think that it would be the perfect situation for Ennis. And this has nothing to do with the fact that he's Canadian, but that is a plus.
But does that, like, if you make a move which obviously makes the team worse in the short term, and that's any move like that, like you're basically offloading Lowry. Any move that does that kind of sets the Raptors back a little bit next year in terms of, say, win total for next season. Like, do you think fans would accept that, or do you think Ujiri would accept that? Do you think he's the type of GM that doesn't mind taking a step back to take 2 steps forward, or is he kind of rebuilding on the fly and trying to get better next year? Or do you think he might actually be somebody who might use his BlackBerry passport to go back a year?
Is he the only guy in the?
I don't know. Those commercials are very annoying at this point. Like, your team just got swept, and you're telling me how you're always on your freaking phone. What are you doing? What are you doing? Words with friends? He's playing. What are you? Just thoughts on Ujiri. Do you think he's a GM that looks at the long term? Because my view is that, like, he resisted making, a win now, sacrifice future later move at the deadline, apparently, I guess. So I think he's patient. I don't think he's made any rash moves at all this year. I don't think he's made any risky moves since he's gotten here. But as you said earlier, I guess in this podcast, that now it's time that he has to kind of roll the dice and do something, because right now he's kind of been playing the field.
Yeah, and your comment about whether Raptor fans will accept getting worse. I mean, we've been having that conversation for more than 10 years. Every time I bring up something like this, it's always, well, we don't want to get worse. I mean, what are Raptor fans going to do if you trade away a good player and you don't get a star player in return? Well, really, what have they been doing for the last 15 years? Watching mediocre to bad teams. I think at some point you have to say, this is what the plan is, and we need to stick to it.
Can't we outsource, or can't we talk to Philly and get some of their talent over here? Because they've been basically the outsourced shop of development.
Everything.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure, like, we could call them up and go, hey, man, give us one of your 18 first-round picks you got hoarded there. All right, I get your point. I mean, fair play. Yeah.
I think what we need to do is look around the league and find young players who are in positions that don't allow them to succeed, like Tyler Ennis, and try and get those guys.
I'd say Reggie Jackson might be one of those guys. I think the Raptors kind of missed the boat on that one. I think he was in OKC. He was kind of in that James Harden type. I'm not saying the same player, but they were in the same situation where, minutes, the contract coming up, minutes were a little iffy, and boom, you traded him. I think that might have been a missed opportunity when I look back. And the one guy that, sorry to hijack the conversation, Tim,
That's all right.
But I do have a better mic. Is that the guy that I wanted the Raptors to draft, and I looked up on the site, I did some searching, was Dennis Schroeder. He's a guy that I openly called for, that we should get him with the 14th pick, acquire a pick, get him. He's there to be had. Picks are available, and they did do that. And right now he's looking like a pretty good player who you wouldn't mind, promoting into the first team and seeing how he does. And looking at the Hawks, even though the score that just went final, Wizards 104, Hawks 98. Wizards take game 1 there. He's the type of guy who you would love to give minutes to on a team that's up and coming.
I agree. I think he would be another great target. I don't know how difficult it would be to get him because he is playing and he's a big part of a very good team. So I think they would be less inclined to trade him because they don't want to shake up the roster.
Because they don't have Shelvin Mack as a backup point guard.
Yes. But yeah, it's exactly those types of guys. And he's somebody that Raptor fans have been talking about for years, because the Raptors were looking at drafting him. But
I get your point. Like you got to target those types of, and that's what those types of players are targeted by everybody. I remember Eric Bledsoe falling into that group when he was with the Clippers.
Yeah.
He wasn't getting minutes there. Boom, come and get it. Isaiah Thomas, I guess, when Phoenix acquired him, even though he went back to a backup point guard. It's those kind of things are. I don't know if you're on to something niche there, Tim. I think those kind of players are extremely hard to get because a lot of teams are targeted. Like Goran Dragic falls into that place as well. So it's
but the difference is a lot of teams that are targeting them want them to contribute right away, and a lot of teams are not in the position that the Raptors are, where they obviously need to make changes. And the Raptors do have some nice pieces to deal. They have some good assets. I think they can get some good young players. They just need to try and work out deals. I think it's a matter of trying. And so far, your jury is. I think patience can be a good thing, but a lot of times, if you wait too long, then you miss the boat.
So I guess what you're saying is strike while the iron's hot and get Tony Snell.
Yes.
Tony Snell's another guy that I wanted the Raptors to draft, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, man. And Kemba Walker was on that list as well. And I still stick by that. Kemba Walker's not a bad player.
Kemba Walker was not on my list. He was on my list of guys.
Brandon Knight. I was a big fan of Brandon Knight. Was disappointed that the Raptors didn't go for him.
I remember Raptor fans loving Brandon Knight and Kemba Walker, and I wanted to stay away from those two guys because they have their
they're like me first a little bit. Yeah.
So
they got the Lowry gene in them a little bit though.
Well, especially Walker does.
I had a tweet when JV was having a really, really poor game, and so was Ross. I think it was game 3 or 4. I don't know what was going on there. And I had a tweet on the main account where I said, "Hey, Raptor fans, just remember that the Raptors passed on Andre Drummond so that they could get Terrence Ross because they had Jonas Valanciunas already at center." That did not go well. So let's talk about. Let's talk about the 20th anniversary celebrations that have been happening. And I'm watching the Wizards Hawks game, and it came on. The commercial came on. The Raptors are like really having not done anything in the postseason or in their entire history, being pretty much woeful. They're picking their moments now on celebrating the 20 years. So one of the moments they picked was like DeMar DeRozan like commenting on that night when they scored 136 points against a shitty Nets team and how it was a franchise high. And they reminisce. They show some clips. Andrea Bargnani is in the background with his mouth open. He has the 3-point line. And I'm just like, can we not do this? Can we not? This is not good. This is not helping the franchise.
No, what it is highlighting just how crappy the franchise has been. So yeah, but I mean, when 49 wins is your high point, that's not something to celebrate. That's not a good sign.
If we win the division banner, if we win the division next year,
who cares about the
do you hang the banner up?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I mean, who cares when no team in your division, no other team in your division wins more than, what was it, 43
something like that,
games, something like that. I could say something that would be highly inappropriate.
Yeah, it's the smartest dumb kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
As Andrew always says.
That's a better way of putting it. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so that's that. Let's talk about the playoffs a little bit, man. Spurs get eliminated by Chris Paul.
The first round.
Yeah, a bit surprising, but not entirely, I guess. After the first couple of games, I think you kind of knew that the Clippers weren't going to go away. At least I think they were a little more prepared.
I've kind of avoided them the last couple of months. I watched them more in the beginning of the season, and I got bored of them. Also, they're just have been hyped in the past more than other teams, and I've kind of avoided watching them. But I've got to say, I was super impressed.
Yeah. Especially
with Blake Griffin, who is a much better player, looks much better than I remember him ever playing. He's been absolutely amazing, and I think before the playoffs, I did not pick the Clippers as an actual contender. I figured they'd second round at best. But after watching them against the Spurs, I mean, maybe it was matchups, but I think they have a chance to win the championship. I think Golden State should still be the favorite, but I would say they are now second in my books. So.
Switching over to the East here, Washington goes one up on the Hawks after their win. Raptor fans, Drew Gooden and Otto Porter Jr. combined for 22 points and combined 4 for 8 from the three-point line. So their hot streak continues. Otto Porter Jr. with just a tremendous game, 10 points, 11 rebounds, just some big clutch shots in that third quarter that got them back. Washington rounding into form. Obviously, you don't expect them to win the title or anything, but kudos to them for actually building a team for the playoffs. And I was on this podcast on the HP Basketball Network, and they asked me for a prediction, or was it some other thing? I don't know. They asked me for a prediction for the Hawks and for the Raptors and Wizards, and I was like Wizards in 6 easily. And turns out I gave the Raptors too much credit. And now this Wizards-Hawks series, I saw this game, and man, they were going back and forth. Hawks had a 10-point lead. Wizards never went away. And sure enough, finally they made their charge in the fourth quarter. They came back, and then they took the lead for good, and the Hawks didn't really have much of a response. A lot of their jump shots were missed. So Wizards, Tim, chance in the series?
I think so. Yeah. I think so. The difference, I mean, the Hawks are a great team. They play well together. They have a great system, but they don't have a guy that you can just hand the ball to and say, here. And that's a lot of times what you need in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. You need a combination of a system and great players. I think that's Atlanta's big downfall. I mean, I think that's why no one, despite them winning 60 games or whatever it was,
fears them.
Yeah. I mean, they were similar to the Denver team that won 60 games a couple of years ago. I think they play better defense, but and they're not play better half court offense. But no one picked them to go to the finals. I mean, it was always Chicago or Cleveland.
Yeah, and Raptor fans often make the comparison against the Hawks because they see themselves. Well, you don't need a top tier player to be successful. You can have DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry, what have you, and combine these guys into a bit of a melting pot, and they can win you a lot of games. And I think the Hawks are really a much more sophisticated version of the Raptors, where they move the ball really well. They're fine-tuning up. They don't have a big superstar, but they've found them a way to win games. And right now their credentials are going to be tested in the playoffs, and they barely got by the Nets. It was a bit of a scare for them.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say barely, but
well, they lost.
Yeah, they lost 2 games. Yeah.
2 games. Yeah.
So
I think that's more than most people assumed.
Yeah, I agree. So, and now they're in trouble with the Wizards. So I hear you. I think this is the danger of constructing a superstar-less team, is that in the playoffs, as you said, you need that one guy to get you that crucial bucket when the defense is locked in and your ball movement, your backdoor cuts aren't working. And at that point, teams like the Hawks struggle. And that's what happened in this game, man. They were moving the ball really well, but suddenly it came down to DeMario Carroll to hit 3-point shots in the fourth quarter, and you couldn't find the space.
Quite frankly, Washington is a much better team than people gave them credit for before the playoffs. I mentioned that I think that Raptor fans were underestimating the Wizards because they have talent. I mean, they haven't been healthy for most of the season, and they got Wall and Beal and Gortat and Pierce. that's better than.
No, absolutely. No arguments there. They're a well-constructed team. I think they got good balance. I think from a coaching perspective, they could be a lot better because
yes,
because despite their talent, they really struggled in the regular season, and I think their offense is good still. Like despite the talent they have, it could be a whole lot better.
It could be a hell of a lot better. Yeah.
So despite all that, they're doing really well, and that shows you. John Wall in this game had 13 assists against the Hawks. He was same formula.
Well, he almost had a triple double.
Yeah. 18, 13, and 7 he had, what else do you want to talk about? The Chicago series was boring.
Well, the one thing we have to mention is the 52-point win by Chicago. I caught the tail end of that game, and when I saw it, I thought it was a mistake. I thought, no, that 6 has to be an 8. Like, there's no way that a team can lose by 52 points.
Yeah, at home.
At home, yeah. I have to be impressed with the Bucks fans. They were still cheering at the end.
Yeah.
I would have. I don't know.
Did your man Tyler Ennis get in the game?
I don't know. I don't know if he did. That's a good question.
I don't know. Let me pull up the box score and we'll find out and see what he did.
I was going to say.
He did. 16 minutes. 16 minutes he played. He was 2 for 9 for 5 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. There you go. That's the guy Tim W wants as the future of the Raptors at the point. Tim, do you want to, as we kind of round this podcast off, do you have any parting thoughts to the Raptor fans? Maybe I told you so, something to that degree, or anything else. I know you don't comment in the comment section. By the way, quick story about Tim W. When he first joined RR, I used to get an email like every day from him about complaining how somebody was rude to him in the comments. And do you remember those days?
No.
And I was just like,
let me be clear.
Let me finish. Every single day I get an email from Tim. Tim, this guy is just being rude, and could you please ban him? So I used to kind of cater to you and delete some comments, but it just got too much, and I finally gave you mod permissions, and the next thing you know, half the comment section was wiped out because you had purged everything, and then we just instructed you to just stay away.
No, I said I'm done. I said I can't do it anymore. Most of it was not the stuff that pissed me off was just people insulting one another.
Yeah, but you insulted them too, Tim. It's not a one-way thing.
Yeah, but not at first.
It's a he said, she said. All right, we'll leave it at that. But
anyways, no, I now avoid the comment section at all costs.
We have very loyal readers who provide some very good insight, and you just check out your last post. There's some good commentary there, and even the people who are agreeing with you there, they're making a lot of sense, and I think it's overall pretty good. I think that's it. We've kind of, gone past more than I thought we would for an off-season podcast. Let's play a quick game before we sign off. Let's pull up the Raptors roster and play keep or punt. Keep or punt.
See, now you're getting into my
what?
My column.
Oh, are we? Oh, okay. Am I going to give a spoiler here? Is that okay with you or no?
Well, the title is Trade, Keep, Release.
Oh, okay. So we shouldn't get it. I don't want to spoil the movie. Oh, sorry, your column for that one. Okay, so there you go. So the podcast got a little less interesting because you're going to have to read Tim's columns on what is it? Trade, keep, or what?
Trade, keep, release. It's a play on the the thing that kids or young people.
Trade, keep, or lease.
Release.
Oh, release. Oh, okay. All right. Okay, then. That's it. Thanks to Tim for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. You have been proven right about the Raptors. The team isn't as good as most people thought they were, but it's still early, and let's see what Ujiri does. If you don't mind, if you just extend this podcast by a minute or so, man, what do you think is the biggest area of need in terms of position right now?
All of them.
All of them? All right. We'll just wait for the column.
Coaching.
Oh, coaching.
Let's say coaching.
Mm. Are you a Casey out guy?
I think he needs to go. I think there are definite reasons that you can make to try and keep him, but I think that he needs to go. Yeah.
All right. We'll read your column, and we'll talk to you soon enough, and hopefully by then some more changes have been made. I agree with you, man. I think Dwayne Casey has kind of taken this team as far as Dwayne Casey's talents can take him, and it's time to see what else is out there. Not necessarily a big name coach, which people sometimes go, oh, you got to get Stan Van Gundy. No, I think you got to get somebody who kind of knows how to build a team from an X's and O's perspective and install a system which caters to your players, or at least have a particular philosophy which has proven to be successful, or at least looks promising. And Dwayne Casey does not have that. That's my biggest thing with him.
Try and get somebody like a Brad Stevens, a young guy who can grow with the team.
Yeah, whose personality the team can actually emulate and be part of. I think that'd be somebody you might want to look forward to. And Dwayne Casey, sorry man, but he's not the guy. I think he's a great guy to bring in when the Raptors did bring him in. That was a great hire by Brian Colangelo, and credit to him. Like, we needed Dwayne Casey at that moment in this franchise's evolution. We needed somebody to come in, and he did and to be honest with you, he did a fantastic job his first few years. And I just think now it's the team has moved beyond him, and his tactics, his approach may not be suitable for what's ahead. But we'll leave it at that, and we'll see you guys next week on next week's Raptors Weekly. Talk to you then.